Okay, ready? Everybody settle, and action.
Warning, Critique Revolve contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended,
You're one ugly motherfucker. Go ahead. Make my day.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man.
It rubs clothes on the skin. It doesn't have
Mostly come at night. Mostly. Wow! Holy fuck!
Short round.
There is no spoon.
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Critique Revolve. It is time for Oscars Part 2, where we are going to be talking about all the things we've managed to see in the last few weeks. We're going to go over our personal choices for most of the categories, maybe not all of them, and talk a little bit about what we've seen, what we've liked so far, and what this year looks like as a whole. Now, this time, we actually have David with us. David's in studio. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everybody.
And Steve, I think, died, so he's unable to make it this time around. No, he's got some other commitments, so he doesn't have the time to put into watching these, which we understand. So it is just going to be the three pretentious guys on the network.
Steve has big dick-itis.
Big dick-itis. It's a chronic condition.
Yeah.
It hurts his back.
Hurts someone's back.
Prevents you from sleeping well.
Or on your side.
Yeah. Gotta use a pillow.
Yeah. And the whole leverage system and a pulley system. Anyway, so you have the three pretentious people who are talking about film, but I'm going to take a guess. And if you're listening to the Oscars parts 1, 2, and 3 episodes, you kind of knew what you were in for. So we are talking about the 2024 nominations. I have spent far too much time hunting down how to watch all of these and trying to do my damnedest to get as many of them under my belt before March 10th. Now, the goal for this episode was to try and get as many of the Best Picture movies watched, because that kind of encompasses most of the year's nominees in every category. There's a lot of like one-offs, but not when it comes to the major players. Now, going around the room, Mike, how many have you seen so far that you've had a chance to? Which ones are you missing?
I've seen every single Best Picture.
Damn.
Every Best Picture film, which if I saw those, most
of them then
will overlap into the other categories.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a few that were not on Best Picture. I think altogether, I have sat and watched, 16 films.
All right.
Total.
Nice. Now, David, how many for you have you seen of the 10 Best Picture nominees?
I've also seen all of them.
No shit.
The Best Pictures?
But Best Picture. I'm still working on, actually, I've just finished watching all of like the best foreign films. And
you in that route.
Yeah. And then I went.
Oh, he's foreign. It makes sense.
Yeah. Also, the foreign films is the one that baffles me the most out of the whole thing, because a lot of the selections were really strange. And then like now I'm after that going to move into the short film category.
Okay.
Oh, so you're going to keep watching?
I'm going to keep watching.
I think I'm going to as well. There's a few that I missed that I think I want to watch before the actual ceremony and our third show, so I can offer some thoughts.
Ever since
I just want to be able to make a informed thought and opinion on every movie that wins, as much as possible.
Ever since like we've started covering the Oscars and we've actually made that type of show where, let's go through and watch everything, I've kind of had a reinvigorated like love for filmmaking. So like
you needed that, Dave.
I needed.
Yeah,
you were losing. I was
losing out, and especially last year, kind of like really reignited that interest in me to actually study film. And so I made the same goal to try to watch everything to see if I could pull, some useful information out of it, or useful, skills.
I enjoyed watching all these films this year. I struggled through several last year. This year, I struggled through, I think, just one that I really struggled with. The other ones, and I'm not saying everything was great, but I didn't hate the bulk of films that I watched. There was just one that I probably would say I hated. Whereas last year, there were a few that it was kind
There was nothing as egregious.
That's weird though, Mike, because I'm the opposite. This is the year that I was watching them and going, I get why you're here type of moment when I'm watching the film. But then it's kind of like, well, you're not doing anything different. When I compare it to like the best picture, when you take the best picture categories, I kept thinking to myself, okay, is this better than the winner of last year, which was Everything Everywhere All at Once? And I was like going, there was probably two in the best picture category where I'd say, okay, might overtake,
or at least on par,
on par with Everything Everywhere All at Once. And like,
see, I'm kind of in between, because I would say there, like you, David, there was more this year that I was like, okay, I get why you're here, but I'm not really that interested.
Yeah.
But there's nothing as egregiously painful as last year's Triangle of Sadness.
No, there's one.
But Thomas, we all learned a valuable lesson from Triangle of Sadness.
Well, we'll have that discussion here in a second, because that is a kind of a question mark. Which is worse, or which is harder to watch?
Which, for our consistent listeners, it isn't the one people are thinking right now.
I bet you a lot of people think it's a certain movie, but
it's shockingly not. Yeah. All right. So I want to save Best Picture as our personal choices, probably for the end, simply because that's what the Oscars do. That's we build up to that big one. So let's start with actors in a leading role. Now, we've all seen all of the Best Picture nominees, which knocked out 4 of these 5. I had a chance to watch Rustin. Mike, I know you have not yet. David, did you check that one out?
Yes.
Okay.
I did just check out Rustin.
Okay, so now with this, we have Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti, The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy, Oppenheimer, Jeffrey Wright, American Fiction. How do we feel this one goes? I would say I think this is a tough one, because there are 2 that I think are phenomenal, one that I think's really fucking good, one that I think's kind of a mess, and one was, I guess, good, but it just didn't have as much of an impact on me. But I think that was a bigger issue with the movie.
I know you have to separate the movie from the performance as much as possible.
It's really tough.
But that is hard, because I will say, like, Bradley Cooper's Maestro, the way he played Bernstein was just fine. It was I didn't have a single problem with it. But the movie itself, I had some issues with. And because of that, it does bring down my perspective or views on the actual role itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's natural. I think I would say a lot of people would do that. If there's a movie you absolutely just disliked, then you're probably not going to gravitate to the actor.
Yeah.
I think that's just, like you said, that's a natural, because it's not going to have the same impact on you as if you had loved every part of it.
Exactly. And I think that basically when it is particular with the best actor category, I find that basically there's 2 that basically are my definite wants that I want them to win.
Well, let's just get to it. Which ones are the 2 that you want?
The 2 that I want to win, Jeffrey Wright and Paul Giamatti.
Okay.
Those are the 2 that I want to win. But the one that I think is going to win is Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy, especially if you study the Oscars and how the other award ceremonies tie into everything, Oppenheimer has been running away with everything. And I would not be surprised if Cillian Murphy took this category.
So you think he will win?
I think he wins.
But what's your choice personally? Because we're going to compare how.
Now now I have to decide between my 2 favorites, which was Jeffrey Wright and Paul Giamatti. I love Giamatti's performance in Holdovers. I thought the comedy was actually really good in that movie. But then I saw American Fiction, and something inside of me just felt so
much pain
in
a great way,
but in a great way, because but like when it comes to their characters, I think I'm going to choose Jeffrey Wright as my favorite out of all the actors.
Okay, so you think Jeffrey Wright would be your choice. Now, Mike, what about you?
This is so tough because Paul Giamatti was so good in The Holdovers. Cillian Murphy was great in Oppenheimer. I have been a fan of Cillian Murphy forever, since 28 Days. Jeffrey Wright, same thing. I've been a fan of his work for a very, very long time. This is such a hard category because their movies were all very well made, but it's between Paul Giamatti and Jeffrey Wright. Now, the reason why I will not go with Paul Giamatti is because Paul Giamatti, I don't want to say he has a comfort zone. I don't want to say he plays the same character because he doesn't. I know some people say that. He's a character actor, so there's always going to be a little bit of that in every role that he plays. But he always finds a unique aspect to the character he's playing to flesh out that helps with the nuances of the performance. He loves little things like touching things, holding things, and in this movie, it was the eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to some interview where he was talking about his different choices he uses in movies. He's always doing something because it helps focus his performance. And when he read the script, the eye immediately stuck out to him. He liked that idea because that was going to be that thing. So he really is an actor through and through. And his performances are always great, but Jeffrey Wright is going to take it for me. His role in American Fiction is so good. And that's all I'm going to say for the time being. Although I think Cillian Murphy will win.
We can talk a little bit about it. We won't go into the whole, because with the Oscars, we're not going to have a whole lot of time necessarily either. I want to hear a little bit of what you guys think with each of these too. So,
well, in particular,
without too much spoilers,
without too many spoilers, Jeffrey Wright, to me, his character resonated with me the most.
Which makes sense.
Just as not just as a writer, but also as a human being that currently right now is just tired of everything.
I was going to say the world.
The world.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like normally like a character like this, you would expect, it only resonates with people who are writers, people who are creative, people who are like this. But no, the character itself, or even take it even further. I know people are going to say that, black and white, being a black person or being a white person, but it even transcends that. It transcends, the character is kind of like this person who is tired of being in the center of the storm.
So for me, for example, Oppenheimer with Cillian Murphy, Jeffrey Wright, and Paul Giamatti are the standouts. While I liked Bradley Cooper as in general, I think he's done better with A Star Is Born.
Yes.
You know, this one felt a little bit too much of an attempt at the Oscar. And therefore you kind of, you're so focused on trying to win the Oscar, you kind of miss in other elements. And it might be, like you said, the movie didn't quite hit for me.
When you look at his first Oscar success with the movie A Star Is Born,
that was phenomenal.
That was just a perfect storm where everything came together. It wasn't intended to be this Oscar sensation.
And that's the difference.
And typically that's how some of the best Oscar films win Oscars, become Oscar favorites, is because it wasn't planned to be. They didn't sit down and try to put together a plan as to how they're going to make a Best Picture or an Oscar film.
And this feels a little bit like a planned attempt.
Bradley Cooper's Maestro feels like he was sitting down and doing a paint by numbers Oscar film.
Yes. Yeah. And that unfortunately it detracts from it. Yeah. Whereas Star Is Born felt like just so much of genuine passion wanting to tell this story. And I feel like that's where we misshoot.
And Jeffrey Wright's role in American Fiction, just to add to a little bit to what David was saying, I feel like he is a character that we can cast ourselves in, and not just us in this room. I'm talking about people in general. He's a very grounded character, dealing with very real issues in today's academia, but the problems affecting academia, the socio-political issues, have bled out of academia and is now affecting the rest of the world. So American Fiction and Jeffrey Wright's role tackles a very relevant topic.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big feather in his cap potentially for this year, because it's relatable on so many levels. The personal family elements, the world elements. Whereas Oppenheimer is, and Cillian Murphy is great in it, but it's kind of a little bit larger than life story. And while I think he was great, Paul Giamatti and Jeffrey Wright kind of felt like a little bit more because of their performance, whereas Cillian Murphy is amazing, but I've seen better from him in other things.
Yeah.
And I think Paul Giamatti has just, to his detriment, been here too many times. I think it goes to Jeffrey Wright.
And I think
this year.
the other person you can't forget is Coleman Domingo.
I think Coleman Domingo sadly just gets overshadowed by the quality of the other movies.
Yes, that's where it loses, because when you watch Rustin, he gives a brilliant performance in that character.
Because he's the only person from that movie that was nominated for anything.
He's the whole movie's him.
Yeah.
The whole movie, without giving away too much.
That's a historical piece.
It's a historical piece based on what was quote unquote considered the first black gay activist.
Well, he's the right-hand man of
He was the right-hand man of Martin Luther King. And like when you watch it, you are watching that movie solely based on his performance, and he does a really great job. But just like what you said, Thomas, I think unfortunately he gets overshadowed, because when you look at Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer, you look at Jeffrey Wright, those two performances right there overshadow Coleman Domingo's performance, as good as it is.
Sadly, yeah.
I mean, it's a brilliant performance. I do think that basically people should see Rustin.
And it's on Netflix, so check it out.
And it's on Netflix. It's easy to pick up. But like, when you're looking at the performances, that's where the movie itself hurts the actor's chances, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just a weaker movie, unfortunately.
It's a weaker movie, but it's a very strong performance.
And in some of the performances, it's a tough year, which we see with actor in a supporting role. Sterling K. Brown, American Fiction, Robert De Niro, Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr., Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things.
See, to me, this is even tougher.
This one's tougher, dude. I really do think so.
Because all of them, except perhaps
4 out of 5?
Yeah. Because I'm going to say something highly controversial.
Okay.
And this hurts.
Clutch your pearls, everyone.
This hurts my soul. I don't think Robert De Niro belongs in this category.
I agree.
Not the one that everyone thought you were going to say.
Robert De Niro. No, I think you thought I was going to say Ryan Gosling.
I think the audience was going to think that you're going to say him.
Listen, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Barbie movie, but the best part of that movie was Ryan Gosling.
It was him.
So I wasn't surprised to see him nominated, because he really is the single factor, the element, the variable that pretty much held the entire movie together.
It is truly a supporting role, like the support beam to a house.
I was about to say, and you remove him, the whole thing falls apart. Robert De Niro, for the past 40 years, has played the exact same role.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the taxi driver or Raging Bull or Godfather 2 Robert De Niro. This is late 90s, early 2000s, which isn't 40 years, maybe 25, 30 years. Meet the Parents, Robert De Niro. He plays the same character all the time. And in Killers of the Flower Moon, the movie in itself is fine, I suppose. But the role he played...
It's not his best work.
It's not his best work, but I also don't think he's that great of an actor anymore.
No.
He doesn't challenge himself. You need to see Ryan Gosling as Ken. He challenged himself. Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things.
Oh my God.
He challenged himself. Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer challenged himself. Sterling K. Brown in American Fiction fucking challenged himself. Robert De Niro is just more the same.
I think this performance felt no different than The Irishman. And that's the other thing, is he has fallen into, I feel, old man, just cash a check and call it a day. Because other actors of his age or older, Anthony Hopkins still challenges himself.
Yeah. And I think that basically with Robert De Niro and with his, era of actors that are still acting today, I think what carries De Niro here is
legacy.
His legacy. It goes into line to why is Martin Scorsese nominated? Not just because of Flowers of Killer Moon, but because he's Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
And that's the reason why I think Robert De Niro is here.
So, Mike, who do you pick then? It's a tough category.
Yeah, this is hard because.
And who do you think will win it as well? Which is kind of the same fucking answer, I think.
Sterling K. Brown,
dude,
I think
he was good.
I want him to win because he's a truly supporting role in its most simplistic definition. And every time Sterling K. Brown was on screen, he owned it. He became the focus.
Yes.
And that to me is star power. That's charisma and that's performance. So for me, he should win. But the person I think will win is Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because he is such a villain.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because as a supporting actor, Robert Downey Jr., his role in Oppenheimer, just like what you guys are always alluding to, what is the strength of a supporting actor? They help support the movie. They carry the movie. Yeah. They might there might be weaknesses in the movie, but when they're on screen, they help strengthen and bolster that. And as funny as it sounds, the person I want to win is Mark Ruffalo. Poor Things, I was incredibly surprised when I saw Poor Things. That is my surprise hit out of all things. And Mark Ruffalo is one of the many reasons why that movie excels the way it does.
I don't disagree. I mean, Mark Ruffalo had me rolling during that movie because he's such a fucking cunt.
He is. I'm just gonna say it now. I'm with David. He's who I want to win because I was flabbergasted by him, dude. I've seen the one where he's the dad and there's the two. I think it's Annette Bening and Julianne Moore. Are the lesbian parents? What's that one called? You know the movie. I'll look it up later. But he was the bad guy kind of in that. Spoilers. Yes. But it never really felt like that. He felt like kind of a dick. This was fucking like villain, hilarious, obnoxious, completely like just the smallest man.
There you go. There you go. That's
in a fucking hilarious way. And I could not believe this was the guy I had seen always be like the friendly, nice dude in every other movie.
And that's the biggest thing. When you look at Mark Ruffalo, you don't expect this type of role.
I don't disagree, man. I think he was fantastic in Poor Things.
The kids are all right. That was it.
But that's why I said the supporting role category is filled with just great performances.
Now the guy that basically I think is going to win is the one that basically we alluded to in the very beginning.
You think Ryan Gosling?
I think Gosling's going to win. And it because it's the Oscars, Mike, you got to say the Oscars has a way of basically, thumbing their nose at critics at times.
Yeah, but I don't think they're Barbie fanboys over at the Oscars. Otherwise,
I think the nomination's good enough for that.
But here's the thing, though. Just like what you guys said, the one thing that everyone who even agrees, Barbie is an incredibly weak. But the one strength of it is Gosling's performance.
Yes, you're right.
He's the one that basically carries that movie to the finish line.
But let's look at Oscar history. Historically speaking, when you have these mainstream pop culture nominations, they typically walk away with nothing.
Typically. But I mean, the last couple of years,
look at Angela Bassett for Wakanda last year.
Shock.
But her role
Jack
was
Sparrow,
not that strong.
Robert Downey Jr. for Pirates of the Caribbean.
There you go.
That one's criminal.
I can go on and on.
I think supporting
these types of pop culture films, these popular films very seldom win in their categories.
Yeah. I think that's just it's the category.
It's the nature of the Academy Awards. You're awarding like the finest art.
But I also think that supporting actor is like notorious for that.
Yeah. Yep.
Like best picture.
Okay, I see that.
Best picture is usually like yeah, that totally makes sense. Or a couple, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
you know, Shakespeare in Love and Crash.
or
Like-
or Green Book
or
Like,
Green
you
Book.
would
You're like, who
cover
the fuck
Green Book.
picked that?
How dare you?
But and leading actor, leading actress is usually pretty. You know who's going to win that, or it's so competitive that it's okay either way between
I
two or
wouldn't
three.
be angry though if Ryan Gosling won.
No, I wouldn't because he did a good job. But I
Yeah.
think
Good
supporting role is definitely the one where you're like, how the fuck did they not win for that?
Mhm.
And you go back, and usually the one that wins, like historically, like people didn't see.
Yeah.
It's just one of those. I'd love Mark Ruffalo. I want him because I think he did so good.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with Sterling K. Brown because I love the guy. I do think that Robert Downey Jr. might take it due to Oppenheimer's just sheer momentum at this point. So, all right. So, actress in a leading role. This one I think is a much easier category. You got Annette Bening for Naiad, Lily Gladstone, Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Huller, Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan, Maestro, and Emma Stone, Poor Things.
Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. I wanted to hate her because I don't like some of the things she said
Yes.
about Westerns, and it just shows her lack of understanding of the Western genre and that it's American myth. It's a white fantasy.
Yeah.
That's literally the fucking point. So I wanted to hate her in this movie, but she is
She won you
charismatic
over.
and she is the best part of the movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
By far, she's the
Yeah.
best part of Killers of the Flower Moon. She does belong in this category. Carey Mulligan, even though I wasn't a big fan of Maestro,
Well, there's the same story, though.
the biggest reason why I think she belongs here is because Maestro's not about Leonard Bernstein. It's about his wife. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if she won, although, again, oftentimes the movie itself that they're being nominated for usually needs to stand out. And I do not believe Maestro really stands out
Yeah.
among
Well,
the other films.
That is true. I cannot remember the actress's name, but she won for lead in the Favorite
yeah.
in 2018, and that was like the only thing that movie won.
Yeah.
For.
So it does happen. Yes.
But I think you're right. Lily Gladstone and Carey Mulligan are both the best parts of weaker movies this year. Weirdly.
And that's why I think Emma Stone for Poor Things will fucking walk away with it because she was
Phenomenal.
mind-blowing.
Own this movie.
The range.
Yes.
The range is insane. This is probably her best movie.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
far. By far,
This
yeah.
is probably her best
She's
performance.
been working for this for a while too. Like she has been progressively getting better over the years and taking on various different roles of all kinds and weird nature and genres. And this is a fucking amazing performance that like she goes through 40 different characters within the case of the movie.
Yeah, I want her to win, and I think she'll win.
All right, David.
I'm halfway with Mike. I want Emma Stone to win. I really do. And I'm thinking that she's going, but then I started thinking about it. Then I started thinking that I think Lily Gladstone's going to win. She can, because of how if anybody's familiar of how we've covered the Oscars the last, I am the cynic when it comes to the Oscars. I think the Oscars is in the process of cleaning themselves up. They're trying to be more legitimate, but they have a history of
Meaning
basically-
removing the activist funk.
Yeah.
That kind of
Has
infected them
permeated for a bit.
Yeah.
or for a long time. But
about 8 years, maybe.
that activist funk in me
Yeah.
basically saying, no, I have this gut feeling that Lily Gladstone's going to win this one.
Well, it wouldn't be undeserved.
I agree with you, David. I can definitely see that happening, and I wouldn't be upset because, I mean, she did a fine job.
She's the best part of the movie.
But going back to what you're saying, when you're looking at the political context
Mm-hmm.
and the nature of where we are currently as a culture,
Yeah.
yeah, you could see it possibly being that film. But like I said during our first discussion, I don't think you were here, David.
He was not.
I did say that I do feel like the Academy, despite there being a few bumps in its history, has tended, if you look at their decisions, they tend to do what they have to do in order to bring an audience in.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they adhere to integrity, the integrity of the art, oftentimes.
Often, but there have been moments.
There's
Has
shakeups.
been speed bumps, absolutely. But for the most part, they're one of the few award shows that actually don't go all in with the whole, hey guys, social media is saying this is what we should do. Look at the hashtags. They hate us.
Exactly.
All right, yeah, I think it's a similar thing. I would like Emma Stone to win. I think it goes to either her or Lily Gladstone due to what we just said. It's one or the other, and I wouldn't be upset either way.
I mean, just to be superficial, I found Lily Gladstone kind of attractive as well in the movie. Am I alone? Like, was she was pretty, right?
She's pretty,
she's
but
pretty.
You also like damaged people.
That
And that's her whole character.
You know
And
what?
that's
She's
her whole
sad in the
character.
whole movie.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes.
Well,
It's a lens.
Jesus Christ.
It's a lens.
It's a lens. I mean, come on, Mike. Emma Stone. You thought she was like
listen,
gorgeous.
Emma
physically
Stone
damaged.
She's physically damaged.
Emma Stone is hot, but it's a lot like watching her in Poor Things is a lot like watching Margot Robbie in Babylon. It's like at first I'm like, God damn, she's hot. And then I feel bad thinking she's attractive because she's so fucking broken and destroyed that halfway through the movie, I no longer look at her that way. Whereas with Emma Stone, at the beginning, I don't look at her that way because she's essentially a child.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then at the end of the movie, when she's just a free will and giving out sex to everyone like it's candy, I was like, okay, now you're hot.
So Mike's damaged too.
Yeah, whatever. I'm like the priest that visits her in the brothel.
Oh. All right. Actress in a supporting
Or the
role.
guy that takes his sons to.
Oh, Jesus. So we have Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Nyad, and Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. I'm just going to say it out the gate. I think she wins.
Who?
I would Divine Joy Randolph.
Yeah.
I think she did a phenomenal job. I'd love to see her win it. The others in this category, I either just disagree or don't feel like they brought a whole lot to the table.
Yeah.
You guys, have you seen Nyad yet, David, or no?
Yes, I have.
Like
With
Jodie
Jodie
Foster's a great actress, but that role is just like a C. Like
Yeah.
it is just flat. And it's not bad, but there's nothing about it that I would think would get you nominated
And she doesn't.
any time.
The only reason why I think that she's here is kind of like in the same vein as Robert De Niro. She's Jodie Foster.
Yeah, legacy.
Because when you look at like the work that she did in Nyad, yeah, it was cool. But just like you said, did it do anything for the film?
No.
Not really.
And America Ferrera, and it was half of her character went to Barbie, and that movie's script is a disaster. Emily Blunt's great, but her character, and while she's a strong supporting character in Oppenheimer, it's such a focus on him.
I would say she really isn't a great supporting. That goes to my.
Emily Blunt?
That takes us to our problem. Yeah, that takes us to my problem with Nolan's writing in general. He's an expert director, amazing director, one of the best, if not the best, currently working right now in terms of mainstream and art pictures. Emily Blunt wasn't bad. She's great.
No,
but
there's nothing there.
It didn't feel like there was enough there until
Yes,
the ending, around the latter
Kangaroo
half
Court.
of the movie. Then she finally
Comes in.
surfaces and makes
Yeah.
a difference in the movie. Divine, is that her name? Divine Joy Randolph.
Yeah.
I agree. I think she will win, and I want her to win. America Ferrera, I honestly, and this has nothing to do with my feelings on Barbie, I just don't think she belongs in this category.
It wasn't acting.
One of my biggest problems with the Barbie movie as a whole, and my answer to why Margot Robbie as well as Greta Gerwig not being nominated is simply because the movie is not complete.
Right.
Yeah.
You have half characters. Because you brought America Ferrera in, she kind of completes Barbie's arc.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Barbie is the existential theme. She sets that aspect up and she propels the plot only so that America Ferrera can
Come in and finish it.
Yeah. And honestly, the only real thing that she did in this movie was that
Cringe.
awful diatribe that came out of nowhere that no one worked for. You have to work for diatribes like that.
Yeah.
You have to work for rhetorics like that where we're going to sit and watch someone go on a speech.
Yeah. And that's the thing I agree with you guys. Like the best supporting actress.
Look at Daniel Day-Lewis really fast. Like he's known for doing those types of
For those
monologues
diatribes,
in movies.
but they're earned.
There you go.
They're
They're earned.
Well, the other thing to me is just it wasn't acting.
No.
I'm sorry. I loved her in Superstore, the TV show that she did.
Mhm.
I thought that was funny as hell. Took a minute to get there, but it was funny.
This has nothing to do with her.
No, she's more capable than this just generic person. This person was a mom, and that was it. And maybe in some way that was the point, but like compare that to some of the other people, especially Randolph. Well, Randolph is a mom in her movie, and that's good enough, but she fucking brings it in that movie.
There's also a natural aspect to her performance.
Yes. And like with the best supporting actress, it's almost like the complete opposite when we're talking about the best supporting actor. All those actors did the job of a supporting actor where you added and you supported the film. Here, when you look at a couple
of them were just like also there.
Not saying that basically they did a bad job. These actresses did a bad job. It was just that their roles that they were nominated for really didn't do anything for their film.
I like that you said that. I want to make that clear. When we dislike an actor in a category, it has nothing to do with them. These people, all of them are amazing actors. It's about the role that they're playing and whether or not that role justifies a nomination.
And that's why it's like, I agree with you, Thomas. It's like Davina Randolph is, when you take a look at all of the actresses on the list, her role is the only one out of all the other actresses where her character mattered to the movie.
And everyone.
Yeah. And she's a huge support.
She was connected to in fact, I think she was the only character in that movie that was literally connected to every single character. I don't even think Paul Giamatti's character was actually connected to every single character in that movie.
No. And that's the thing about the supporting role.
Well, the script is just a better role.
Yeah.
It just is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go straight to cinematography. Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and say it again for us, Mike, because I get it ruin it with my whiteness.
Which one? El Conde.
There you go. Thank you.
Conde. El Conde.
Of this one, this is a little tough. I would say the ones that stand out to me is El Conde, but that was a weird movie.
White guy.
I know, I'm white. Conde.
Wow,
it's a gorgeous movie.
It is.
Yes.
And that was the only thing it had going for it.
I disagree, but I get your point.
Well, it's not the only thing, but it's definitely the strongest thing.
I understand why you disliked it.
It's
You're white.
Thank you, David.
It's hyper political, and I that's one reason why I just also didn't love it, because I'm just burnt out.
Well, I don't have a background on Chilean history, so
it's because you're white, Thomas.
Right? I'm evil.
Yeah, the shade of your skin says it all.
Right. But that movie was gorgeous looking. If that won, I'd be like, holy shit. I'd be surprised because this is the only thing it's nominated for.
Yeah.
But I would think it definitely deserved it. Killers of the Flower Moon, I think, is another one where the cinematography is great. It's one of the better parts to look at for the boring parts of the movie. El Conde and Poor Things are better.
See, that's the pick that I would have made.
But I think this is going to go to Killers.
Really?
I think with Scorsese, his age, his legacy, the hype. The weird thing is, guys, we didn't care for Killers all that much. Spoiler alert. But everyone else fucking does.
Yeah.
And this thing, I think, is going to walk away with something. And I don't believe it should be director or best picture. And I think they could easily see us going to. I feel like Killers will be like All Quiet on the Western Front was last year.
I think Scorsese is going to be shut out.
You really?
I honestly don't believe. I think a lot of the people who are reviewing things oftentimes get stuck on a particular director or actor that they believe is good, so they see it as such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. There is bias, absolutely.
I think that'll come into play. This film, remove Scorsese's name from the film. Take Robert De Niro out, take DiCaprio out, replace it with other actors that are good, but not those names. I do not believe this movie would have been nominated. It just is not Scorsese's strongest work.
Yeah.
I think it's more like The Irishman, which didn't really get nominated, but due to the subject material it has.
It had to be carried.
So what would you think it should go to then? What do you think and what do you want?
This is really hard because I think Oppenheimer did some amazing practical work.
Yeah.
That alone should earn its award. But how is the Academy going to look at that practical work? Are they going to look at it as special effects?
Yeah.
Or are they going to look at it as a work from the cinematographer? Technically, it's the work of both.
Yes.
So how are they going to award this film? How are they going to pick? I would like Poor Things to win because I really think they did some really
gorgeous
unique,
Shots.
stylized, interesting camera work that really conveyed certain ideas.
Well, especially the black and white to color changes too.
And just knowing what the movie's about.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that basically the reason why El Conde and Poor Things should be talked about more in the cinematography is exactly what you said, Mike, is like they brought something to the table where we say, man, look at those visuals. El Conde, the cinematography is the sole thing that carries that film. Poor Things, you're dealing with such a experimental choice of a film that you're going to get those experimental shots. But when you think about Oppenheimer, the reason, and this is what I've been telling people is why Oppenheimer is going to win, is because at the end of the day, Oppenheimer is going to be used as a benchmark for teaching what a film should look like. That's the thing about Nolan.
I can see that,
Nolan, this is probably for me, this is Nolan's visual masterpiece. He's already in film study books, but I honestly think Oppenheimer is going to trump all of like his other works when it comes to the cinematography.
All right, so 2 for Oppenheimer.
So this is how I'll say it, and then we can move on because I know we're running out of time already. Poor Things is more my style of movie. It's my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to this category specifically. But I can still separate that. And I believe Oppenheimer probably should win because of the things they're doing. Yes, Poor Things is experimental, but it's also borrowing from different genre conventions to craft their film. Whereas Oppenheimer is just being a Nolan film. It's doing what Nolan does. He's not mimicking style. He's almost creating his own look.
Yeah.
And David, you agree with these?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because like, as I said,
I'm taking notes for a couple weeks from now.
Bottom line, Oppenheimer, I think, is going to be is the film out of this year's run.
Oh, it's going to walk away with
It's going to walk away with a lot. And I think it's going to be the movie that's a textbook study. People will look back at it and say, okay, what's the film?
Yeah.
So
again, Oppenheimer. Yep.
So we'll be quick on, we'll knock out a few here. Costume design, Barbie, Killers, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. I think it goes to either Barbie or Poor Things.
I think Barbie. I agree. And I also think Barbie. Oh, Jesus. Let me be fair here. I was trying to be fair to Barbie because you know what?
Hear that. Don't be fair. It is not about fair.
I want Poor Things to win.
There you go.
Poor Things is a better put together film. Therefore, costume design should win. Because if you were to base it just simply on costume, I honestly feel like Barbie and Poor Things is pretty much on par. So then that means I have to then go to the better film, which is the better film. And what film uses that costume design that much better? And that is Poor Things. So I think Poor Things will win, and I want Poor Things to win.
All right. David, what do you think? And
Really
what do you
quick.
want? Real quick.
I think it's going to be Poor Things. I'm exactly with Mike with that. The only one that I would take over Barbie in this category is Napoleon. Napoleon, their set design and their costume design was just miraculous. It looked really good.
Okay. I think it'll go to one of the two. Honestly, I'd say it's a coin toss as to which one will walk away with it. Directing, we have Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest. I think this one goes to Nolan hands down. I think there's no way he doesn't walk away with directing this movie. And historically, the best director and the best picture go hand in hand with winners. Is there any changes in opinion on that one?
No, I'm with you. He's going to walk away hands down, Christopher Nolan. I mean, as much as we like Poor Things with Yorgos Lanthimos, I think that's
Lanthimos.
Lanthimos. As much as we liked his work, Nolan's going to walk away with this.
Yeah, this one's hard for me too, but I also believe Oppenheimer will win, and I think it should win because if you had to pick one thing about this movie that makes it so great, it is the directing. The directing is what really makes this film stand out.
Yeah. All right, film editing: Anatomy of a Fall, Holdovers, Killers, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. Toss up? I really don't know.
I think it goes between Oppenheimer and Poor Things.
Yeah.
I think Oppenheimer walks away with it.
Killers of the Flower Moon was pretty basic, standard, which does, when it comes to the Oscars, typically the standard style of editing, particularly when it comes to, or specifically when it comes to period pieces, the Oscars tend to like those types of movies.
Yeah. So we're going to skip a couple of them. Production design. We have Barbie, Killers, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. I think this goes to Barbie. I truly do.
You think this is where they come in?
For example, Black Panther got nominated for a bunch of stuff in 2018 and walked away with, I believe it was costume design. I think Barbie's getting nominated for a bunch of things, and I think they're going to walk away with production design. Say what you will about that movie, but it is visually gorgeous. With the Barbie town and city, the production sets, the real sets look great. I mean, even the like fake as fuck 2D beach and shit, like it's got this like toy aesthetic perfectly placed into it. The color palette.
Isn't that like 90% of the movie?
Yeah. And I'm saying this is where this movie shines.
Damn you, Thomas, for actually making sense.
I agree with you, Thomas. I believe that Barbie will win production design, and I believe it should.
Yeah, I will give it that. I think it deserves that one.
It's one of the best things about the movie.
God, I wanted to say Poor Things so bad for this.
I think Poor Things is a little muddied with some of its surrealism in general. Like it is like, it's not bad by any stretch, but I think Barbie is so in your face, whereas Poor Things is a little more esoteric.
Yeah.
Like,
I hate to say it. Yeah, you're right. That one talked me out of it.
There's a lot of digital in Poor Things as well. So,
yeah, it's a weird thing with production design for Barbie because in a lot of ways you can also point to the amazing production design being a product of Greta Gerwig's vision.
Yeah.
But again, the reason why she was snubbed is because overall the movie falls apart because of the writing.
Yeah, it just does.
Yeah.
All right. So the next couple I want to hit on: visual effects, The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Napoleon, and Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Can this title get any longer? The Surrogate.
There's only one right answer in this category for me.
Now, this is more of, do you think... Well, because David, you have an opinion on this one.
Yes.
Which is?
Godzilla -1 has to win.
Do you think it will actually pull that off?
But why, though, David? Not because you like it.
Okay.
Why should it win?
And I thought about this. I put aside my fanboyism, put aside why I love the movie, why it can make me cry on a daily basis. But Godzilla -1, the work that they were able to pull off, on the budget scale, on the scale that they had to work with, has to be recognized. You compare this to something like Guardians of the Galaxy, you compare this to all of the nominees, all of them, even The Creator. Their budgets were insane.
Even The Creator was what, 10 times?
Yeah, it is 10 times. 10 times the budget. Godzilla was the lowest budgeted visual effects here. And everyone
it's
basically
reportedly $10 to $15 million.
Yeah,
that's insane.
And that's insane for what they were able to pull off. And on top of that, they also were able to do a secondary visual effects version of minus color. Yeah. Still under $10 to $15 million.
I would say I would give it probably to Godzilla -1. It had such an impact. It came out at the end of the year with no one's assuming anything about it. Looks gorgeous, has a truly groundbreaking explosion with the atomic breath.
With the atomic breath.
I don't remember the last time I was in a movie theater and I was genuinely sitting there like, holy fuck.
Where you literally feel like when I tell people, I basically tell people, I'm not saying it just as a fan. When I watch Oppenheimer and Godzilla, the visual effects are very similar to the explosions of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
You get the same feeling from Oppenheimer when the bomb goes off, and Nolan had this brilliant way of doing like the visual effects with the sound design where it made you feel it.
That's why I'm surprised it didn't get nominated for visual effects.
Yeah, I was surprised too. Instead, creator was nominated over.
Well, I think the fact, so that's the other thing. I think creator might have a run at it from everything I've heard. It's one of the ones I haven't seen yet. But Guardians, Napoleon, and Mission Impossible, they all have like huge budgets.
Yeah, huge budgets.
I think by the fact that Godzilla and the creator comparatively, and especially in Godzilla's case, did such a fucking good job to get recognized, it should go to probably Godzilla, but at least one of the two of them.
And don't get me wrong, looking at the list, the creator did a fantastic job visually. If people haven't had a chance to watch that, it is a piece of stunning visual effects work that they did in that movie.
For under 100 million. It was
under 100.
80 million. And that's why I believe that the creator, and it's going to be between the creator and Godzilla -1, because of the amount of work they put into those movies and how big they look.
Yeah.
And when you actually put that down and you take into account the actual budget, I mean, that's quite a feat to accomplish what they did. Specifically, like you mentioned, with Godzilla -1 being a $15 million budget, and it felt like a mid-2000s blockbuster film.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. The creator, I mean, wowed me. When I found out this movie was made for, I believe it was $80 million.
$80 million.
And that movie is bigger than some of the DC and Marvel films that
better looking than a lot.
$350 million to make. And that's why Guardians of the Galaxy, yes, is a beautiful movie. I love it. But also it benefits from a
30 times the budget?
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. So writing, adapted screenplay, American Fiction, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest. I think two of these are borderline offensive when it comes to a writing standpoint. And I think American Fiction was amazing. I think that needs to win this. I have never felt more this year than when I watched that movie. I thought it was funny. I thought it was poignant. I thought it was relevant. I thought it was important.
Yeah.
This movie matters. People need to see this movie for the cultural climate we are in and for what it has to say about people, culture, art. It's so
fun.
fucking good. It's fucking good. It's funny as hell, despite the subject material.
Everybody, there was a bunch of regular people when we went to go see it. I expected it to be empty because it's a Oscar-nominated picture. The theater was packed. Everybody was enjoying the film. They were laughing throughout the movie. There were moments that were sad and people reacted.
Yeah.
It actually was able to grab the audience in a very effective manner. So I would agree with you, Thomas. American Fiction should win, and I believe it will win.
Yeah.
Because it's so complete. And forget about relevancy. Let's forget about cultural relevance for a second, and even the fact that many of us can relate to the movie.
It's so well written.
It's important. But looking at how it is written, the movie is by far the best written script out of all of these nominated pictures.
Heads and shoulders above.
It is a textbook script.
It is so much like this kid needs to be pushed to the next grade up compared to everyone else in this class. And two of you need to be held behind.
And Barbie, I think the worst part of the movie is the script.
Yes.
Is the script.
That's why I don't get how it got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Money.
Oppenheimer, as I said at the top of the show, Christopher Nolan's weakness as a filmmaker is writing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always has been.
His act 2.5.
His first film, the indie picture he made,
Memento
was solid. He has a lot of linear and pacing choices that I shrug and kind of like wonder why he's doing this.
Yeah.
It's almost like his writing choices have become almost like a meme. And from what I've understand.
The other thing too is that like with all of these, I like Poor Things quite a lot, but each one of these has a part of the movie where I'm like, this could have been cut, removed, doesn't add to anything. It just adds to runtime. Whereas American Fiction is
Poor Things meanders at the end.
It does. At the end, it meanders. American Fiction is so fucking tightly written, never overstays its welcome. If anything, I wanted more.
Yeah, exactly.
It is fantastic. I want to get the physical
you were
script.
Disappointed.
Yes. I want to get the physical script, just to, like study it myself and go through it.
Yeah.
It's so well done.
Zone of interest. You know how you hear that saying, watching paint dry?
Oh my God.
You're quite literally watching paint dry.
You're watching people do chores.
Like you're just watching people go about their life with these static camera shots where you miss things. And I like the idea behind it. I get what the director was trying to do. Nothing he was doing is lost on me. So when people come back and say, I love Zone of Interest, it's sitting at a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, let go of the pretentiousness for a bit and admit that the movie is boring as fuck.
It's boring as fuck. It's security camera footage of people doing chores.
Yeah. Now, I get everything he was doing. And
Yeah.
I can even understand why he did it. And artistically, I can even say I like what he did. But as a movie, it's garbage.
My God.
And it's not even a movie.
It's
And
not.
This isn't a movie.
And when you look at like the screenplay, also
The
when
sticky note?
when you basically say, okay, am I going to study how he did this? It's not that
No.
hard to study. That's the difficult part.
I don't know how much is actually on paper.
It goes to like what you were saying.
How is this
earlier,
even
Thomas.
on
Like,
a
like
screenplay?
legitimately, what is the screenplay for this? Look, it's got to be 40 pages.
Yeah, when you look at American Fiction, and American Fiction's my pick, hands down,
Yeah.
is you're going to be looking to see how does he get the comedic timing here? How does he park this
How does
joke
he give us information
and
in a
make it
natural
work?
way?
How does he go from being funny to legitimately being in a
There's-
sad moment?
There's legitimate, like, I don't want to spoil, but there's one of the saddest moments you can think of, and there's a fucking joke in it that just fucking
That
is
like
perfect.
breaks
and
the
it
scene.
breaks it brings levity at the perfect time without being a Joss Whedon-y, quippy piece of crap.
Yeah, and people wonder how it's done. That's what
That is-
American Fiction
that
is
is one.
going to be able to bring to the table when it comes to it. Why is this the best
Yeah.
screenplay?
So for original screenplay, we have Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Maestro, May, December, and Past Lives. Again, I think there's a couple that don't really bring much to the table here, but I think the strongest ones and the ones that I would like to see the most, The Holdovers is amazing.
Yes.
And May, December is really strongly written and really depressing at the same time. It's a solid script.
But it's
and
so
I think
depressing, Thomas.
the two of those, I think, are very, very good. I had a lot of problems with the script element of Past Lives that
How
I
dare
felt
you.
like was wasted. There's just nothing happening.
I disagree.
Characters are
Lots
one-dimensional.
happening.
There's a lot of movement on the camera.
There's a
like
lot
random
happening.
shit
He
going
just
on.
is emotionally bankrupt. He doesn't have emotions or feelings.
Right.
He's never experienced lost love before.
I will go through.
Hey.
I will go through this on our part 3 as to why I don't like it. We don't have time for that today. Maestro's script, I think, is messy. It just is. There's problems with it. It kind of cuts out parts that you'd think you'd want to see, and then continues well beyond when you think it would have ended. And Anatomy of a Fall is kind of like Naiad was, where I'm like, there's nothing bad about this, but I don't feel like there's anything that would be remarkable. It is out of my memory as soon as I turned it off.
Yeah.
So for me, Holdovers is phenomenal. The way it's written, the characters, the dialogue. Same thing with May, December. It's got great voice where you can tell who's who by what they say and how they say it. And these are the kind of things that keep you entertained. For both of those movies are really just what's going on in these people's weekend. Like, for that to be the content, but it's that interesting. I mean, I'd love to see the Holdovers take it. If May, December did, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think the Holdovers is potentially in a spot like last year's Banshees of Inisherin.
That's how I feel.
Everyone like loved it, but I don't know how many things it'll actually walk away with because of competition.
I think it depends on how you evaluate scripts. Holdovers pops because the characters are written in such a way that the things that they say and do pops and
Yeah.
it makes sense with what you're seeing.
And it matters.
When it comes to Past Lives, I don't think the script is written poorly, but some of the performances, as Thomas said,
It's just not as much there.
yeah, there is not as strong. And because of that, your writing isn't going to pop if your performances aren't
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I believe Anatomy of the Fall possibly would fall into the same category
Yeah.
because when you look at the strategy behind the writing of Anatomy of a Fall, it works. On paper, I think the screenplay is pretty strong, but I think the performances,
Don't sell it.
yeah, the lead is kind of flat. There's no personality really.
Mhm.
And because of that, can you really evaluate the script, the only way you can evaluate the script fairly is by separating the performance. But the performance is what makes the script work.
And
Especially
that's
its
what
original script.
And with holdovers, that's what you get is the performance makes the script work.
Yes. And that is exactly why, when I looked at this category, I was like going, the adapted screenplay made sense. I mean, each one of those had reasons why they're there. But when you go to this one, you can't take away the performance from this point of the dialogue. That's why, just like what you said, Mike, Holdovers is the standout of this one. But even like the closest one that I thought would have been actually a standout of this one was Maestro, just because of the performances. Because of the performances. Because the thing that hurts Anatomy of Fall, Past Lives, and Made December for me is the performance of that dialogue.
I'll tell you why, David, I disagree with that. My biggest problem with Maestro is that the movie's called Maestro. It's supposed to be a biopic about Leonard Bernstein, and the movie actually plays coy with Leonard Bernstein's characterization and the fleshing out of who he was, or at least perceived to be. And we never really learned anything. He felt like this.
We watched him third person.
Distant, godlike character that would sometimes appear because he has to be.
Grace us with his presence.
But the movie revolved around the actions of his wife.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like that's why when I compare the field, Maestro, to me, I will agree. The performances in Maestro is better than the other three, and that's what helps Maestro. They kind of negate each other. Then you're just left with the Holdovers, where it's like, okay, they get
the
all
Holdovers
the
is better.
They have all the checkpoints, while the other ones have like, well, they got this checkpoint, but they're missing this.
Yeah.
So you're with the Holdovers as well?
I'm with the Holdovers, hands down.
And listen, I do want to give a shout out to May December writers for actually tackling male rape.
Yeah.
For once.
Holy God.
Because it's as if it doesn't exist.
The thing that I liked, but also my stomach churning about that, was that it's a movie that not only tackles the rape element, but it's a movie that is calling out how fucked up this child teacher thing is, that when it's a female teacher and a boy child, there's a real life story this is based on, in which that was like totally, all right, well, they're married now, I guess it's all right now.
Yeah.
What? Like how?
If the roles
this
were
shows how fucked up that is, that everyone's acting like it's okay. Very much like the zone of interest. Like, there's some shit going on you people do not want to look at, but it is fucking happening right there. Like, ugh. Yeah.
All right. So we ready to close out with our last category?
We're ready to close out with the best picture. Now, this one, I'm interested in. I think there's a runaway winner here for the most part. But Mike, let's go to you first.
You want to list them all first?
I'll list them. Yeah. We have American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest. That's a lot. Now, I think, let's just start with you. Go ahead. What do you think?
Let's start with a little bit of setup first. So, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and American Fiction are actually three of my favorite movies of 2023.
Yeah.
I don't think a single movie that comes close for me that was produced last year. So this is really difficult. Now, looking at it, how the Academy will probably look at it, it's going to be Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Because overall, taking in its popularity, the Barbenheimer phenomenon, the box office draw, the directorial
masterclass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Masterclass that Nolan performed for everyone, the in-camera effects, the topic, the objective approach that he took when covering a very divisive history, allowing the art and the performance to speak for itself, not willing to give commentary. I'm looking at things from the outside now. I think overall, Oppenheimer represents something that's missing in modern film. it's Best Picture for me.
Okay.
And you think it'll win too?
Yeah.
David, what about you?
Okay. This one actually was very surprising. I thought this was going to be a very easy year to decide what was the best picture.
And it was it?
No, because toward the end, I ran into 2 films, or actually 3 films.
Zone of Interest and Barbie.
Oh, no. That blew my expectations. First was Holdovers. I wasn't expecting that. That was really good. Then I saw Poor Things. I'm like, oh my God, it's visually my favorite film out of the entire list. But then the last film I watched on the list was American Fiction, because I was really thinking this is going to be kind of like a throwaway type of film. I saw what it's going to be about, and I thought that, oh, it's going to be like an agenda piece. I was incorrect. It was a brilliant film. Like, Jeffrey Wright was the perfect choice for this. I loved his character. I laughed with his character. I cried with his character. But like, I agree with you, Mike. Oppenheimer, you look at it, it is the perfect film. It is going to be the film that everyone's going to look to and say, I think that people will study Oppenheimer for its techniques, for what it did, for what it tried to do, and all the production value behind how it was made. People will study it.
So Oppenheimer for you?
Oppenheimer, I think, is going to win, but the one I want to win is American Fiction, because American Fiction, to me, the irony of American Fiction would be hilarious.
If it won.
If American Fiction won, and when you think about the film.
Dude, how funny, David, if let's say it does win.
Exactly.
And then the person handing the award says something pertaining to an African-American character won.
That's what I mean.
Because that's why this movie's so great, because we all thought it was going to be an agenda picture.
It was going to be
just
an agenda.
because the times we live in and the little log line you read about the movie is actually anti-agenda. It's about tackling and dissecting those agendas.
I want American Fiction to get that to get the award, and Jeffrey Wright just to stare at the camera when he's holding the award.
You're right, though, Mike.
That we can all crack up at the absurdity of it.
They would be so blind that they would praise all the stuff exactly the way the movie criticizes.
American Fiction. If American Fiction wins, you're going to see all these blogs saying, "Oh, an African-American picture won Best Picture."
Oh my God!
And then the director's going to be pulling his hair out,
dude.
Like,
Motherfuckers,
a black cast did the unthinkable and won an Oscar, and American Fiction wins. That is who I want to win, Mike. Just because of like the ironic absurdity of all of it happening. You got to say, if we were watching it live, and if that happened, you two would actually start laughing at it.
I'm going to tweet the director if they do anything like that.
Oh my God, I would gladly do that with you.
I'm like,
oh man.
I'm like, look, bro, they didn't watch your movie.
Oh man, that'd be Jesus. All right, so yeah, this year I thought was going to be fairly easy, and as I got into it, right at the end, there were a few more that I enjoyed a hell of a lot more than I thought I would. American Fiction primarily among them for the reasons we've stated here. I think that's such an important film for people to watch and really fucking listen and pay attention to, because everything it criticizes is exactly what happens everywhere today, at least in Western media.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and I love The Holdovers, but I do think The Holdovers is going to be the Banshees of Inisherin this year, where it gets a lot of nominations and just doesn't walk away with them. But it'll be a movie people really enjoyed. It's in a similar vein, I feel, even.
I think, you know what? What films do you think are the most enjoyable films in the Best Picture? It's American Fiction and Holdovers, right? That's the best. Those are the two feel-good movies, right?
I mean, I guess so, yeah.
Movies?
Yeah, movies that you can walk away not being all morbidly depressed. That at the end, it has a good like feeling to it.
I would agree with that.
Oh, I would. Yeah, thinking about it.
Because the others are either depressing, middle of the road, or
anger-inducing.
Past lives, I almost slit my wrist, and not because I hated it, but because I'm like, God
it's
damn
depressing.
it, this is so fucking sad.
It's depressing and it's messed up. Poor Things is funny, but it is also kind of a depressing commentary. Yes. Zone of Interest is just straight up bad and also depressing subject material. Maestro ends on kind of a downer. Spoiler alert. Anatomy of a Fall, similar vein of right there. Killers, same thing. Like all of them. Barbie's just a mess, and so I left angry. And Oppenheimer induces like just anxiety.
But
like,
when you think about American Fiction and Holdovers, is the only two.
But I do think, and when I look at like what's going to win Best Picture, not only from Academy, just sheer momentum behind this movie and the quality of it. I love American Fiction. I probably enjoyed that more than Oppenheimer, but I think Oppenheimer's going to win Best Picture this year. I think there's no way it doesn't. It's inevitable.
It's written in stone. Like it seems like it's just the moment it came out.
And the thing is, too, dude, it was the movie that made me have a glint of hope this year after for cinema. I was like, I remember sitting in theaters being like, I haven't seen something this interesting and different for at least 5 years. And that alone is important and a reason to call it a Best Picture for 2023, because whether it was due to Barbie's boost or not, that 1-2 punch in that weekend, I think was the shift in the rest of the year.
Listen, the Barbenheimer phenomenon was actually started by Christopher Nolan. When they asked him on the red carpet a controversial question, try those gotcha questions.
They try them all the time.
They said, so what movie do you want people to see on the weekend that Oppenheimer comes out? Because Barbie comes out at the same time. And he's all, why do we have to choose? I think we should have a double feature. I think we should see both of them. And that's when it started. That's when it took off. It became a meme. Barbenheimer became an international sensation. So Barbie's success and Oppenheimer's success in a lot of ways is because of Nolan's charitable approach to movies and the way he talks in interviews.
Well, and I think it was also just the audience was tired of being told by activists instead of writers and filmmakers, this is what you should like. Why aren't you liking this? Cram it down your throat. And instead you had a movie that appealed to damn near everyone and had definitely maybe a male lint with Oppenheimer. And you had a movie for women, targeted at women, about women. And it was the most profitable movie of the year. Yeah. I think those two kind of were a big middle finger to Hollywood saying, if you give the people what they want, they'll actually show up. And that's inspiring in its own morbid way. So with that, that's going to wrap it up here for part 2. We're going to come back with the Oscars, see what ends up winning and how correct we are. If we get, bonus points for various calls. And if we're all going to just, rip up our hopes and dreams based on other things that win and make me depressed. So we'll see. Thank you all for listening. And we'll see you in a few weeks.
Cut! No good for sound.
Well, fucking hell, Lloyd.
Man, game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
I'll be back.